Welcome to the Brass and Woodwind Shop. This video is going to be about how to adjust flutes. There are two different things that need to be done to make the flute keys work together well. One is called adjusting and the other is called regulating. Adjusting is to get two keys to close at the same time. Regulating is to get the keys to start to close at the same time. That sounds like they're similar things, but they're very different. Flutes can seem rather complicated, so I took the keys off that do not need adjusting. What I left are the keys that work together and that need adjusting. If you're adjusting a flute, you do not want to take the keys off like I did. I just did it for training purposes. Keys that are in adjustment close onto the tone holes at the same time. Now this key closes this one, and let me show you what happens here. This key starts to close before this one, so they are not in regulation because they do not start to close at the same time. Let's see if they're in adjustment though. That key starts to close and then it closes this key and then those two close at the same time. So those are in adjustment but not in regulation. So when you're adjusting a flute, adjust first. Make sure that those are in adjustment and then regulate later. This key, the E key, also closes the F sharp key and they start to close together. So they're in regulation but they're out of adjustment because this key does not close. You have to push it down hard to get it to close. These keys start to close at the same time, so they're in regulation, but they're out of adjustment. So when I adjust these, the regulation's also going to go off. And that's the reason why you adjust first and regulate later. This is the right-hand section of flute keys. Each one of these screws has a tab underneath it, and they are hooked up to the F sharp key. The screws control these little tabs that close the F sharp key. The way to adjust a flute is to turn the little screws in the correct direction, and what that does is it raises and lowers the key that you're adjusting. Raise or lower the key until they close at the same time. This flute has all the screws right on the top, but there are some flutes that have the screws in the back. This one has a screw right in the back of the key. There it is. There are also two other screws that go over the tab of the F key. Either way, just figure out which of the screws adjusts which key, and they work pretty much the same way. Before we get started adjusting, I will show you which keys close which keys. All of these three keys, the D, E, and F keys, all close the F sharp key. The F key also has a tab in the back, which closes another tab, which closes the B flat key. The A key also closes the B flat key, and on the back of the flute, the B flat lever also closes the B flat key. There are three ways to close the F sharp key, and that's with the D, E, and F keys. And there are three ways to close the B flat key. That's with the F key, the A key, and the B flat lever. These are usually about the only tools you'll need to adjust the flute unless you run into problems. You need a good woodwind screwdriver with a small blade on it, and a pad leveling tool, which you use for other things other than leveling pads, a feeler gauge, and I did a video on how to make one of these feeler gauges, so look in the description below for a link to that video, and some sandpaper, usually around 200 grit. Also, before you adjust the flute, you need to make sure the keys are level. The pads need to sit straight on the tone holes. If they're off to one side, then they will not be able to be adjusted. First you level the pads, then if they're new pads, then you need to seat the pads, and if they're not new, then you usually do not need to seat the pads. After the pads are leveled and seated, then you adjust the keys, and after you adjust, then you regulate. This video will only be about adjusting, so look in the description below for links to the other videos. I usually start with these two keys. Take the feeler gauge, and this key does close, and the F sharp key does not close. You can tell that just by looking at it. Now I'm going to turn this screw to adjust the F sharp key, and you can test which of the keys closes and which one does not. This one closes, and this one does not close. There's no tension on the feeler gauge, so I know that this one is not closed. So I'm going to close it a little bit, take the screwdriver, and turn the screw. Usually you'd need to just turn it a little bit, and you can test the key again, and it still does not close. So I'm going to close it some more. Okay, this one still closes, and this one is starting to close. I can feel a little bit of tension, but not quite enough. So I'm going to turn that screw just a tiny little bit more. And use a feeler gauge to test it again. Okay, this key still closes all the way. This one, there's some tension but not quite as much. So I'm going to turn the screw just a little bit farther, not very much. You probably will not even be able to see it on the video, but let's see if that does it. Okay, now this one closes a little bit more than this one. What you want is equal tension on the feeler gauge, and there's a little bit more tension on this one than there is on this one. So I'm going to back it up just a little bit. Again, you probably will not even be able to see it on the video. Okay, now this is good. So these two are in adjustment. Now I'll move on to the next one. Okay, this time, this key does not close. This key closes this one, but it does not close all the way before it closes. And you can see if I push down harder, it will close, but you do not want to have to push down hard when you are playing a flute. So I'm going to back that one up a little bit. Okay, it still closes this key too much, so I'm going to back it up a little more. And you just keep doing this until they are equal. Sometimes you have to back it up and sometimes you have to go forward, but either way, you just do what it needs until it works. After you've done this for a while, you'll get a feel for how much the screws need to turn. Now these two are good. Now I have to do the D to F sharp, and that one is in adjustment, so I do not need to turn a screw for that one. Now I'm going to move over to the A and B flat keys. The A key closes, the B flat key does not, so I'm going to turn that screw. I've done the 4 adjustments with the 4 adjustment screws, and now I have to do 3 more adjustments that do not have screws. Next there's the F to the B flat adjustment, and that's done on the back side of the flute. The F key has an adjustment screw on it, and it also has a foot that goes onto the back of the key, and that goes up and down as you push the key up and down. And on top of that foot, there's the tab that is connected to the B flat key. So when you push the F key, it closes the F sharp key and it closes the B flat key. Some flutes have an adjustment screw on the B flat lever, and if that's the case, just turn the adjustment screw to adjust the B flat key. These two are already in adjustment. Now I have to adjust the F to the B flat adjustment. The way I do that is to figure out if the B flat key needs to be opened or closed more, and in this case it needs to close farther. What you do is you hold down the B flat touch piece, but hold it right here. If you hold it right here, it's going to bend. So you hold it over here, and then you push down with your thumb on this. You do it with a flexing motion. Then you check the 2 keys, and this one does not close now, and that one closes. So I went a little too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back up. I'm going to do that with a pad leveling tool, which is usually used for leveling pads, but it can be used for this too. And I'm going to check this again. Okay, it's close. This key still closes a little more than this one does. There's one other way to adjust that, and I'll show you what that is. Instead of bending this little tab again, there's a piece of thin cork underneath the tab, and I'm going to sand that down with a piece of sandpaper, just a little bit. And now I'm going to check. Okay, that is good now. And now the only adjustment left on the body of the flute is the B flat lever to the B flat key adjustment. So turn the flute around and check those 2 pads. That one does not close all the way, and this one does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the B flat lever a little bit. The best way to bend that up is to take the flute pad leveling tool and put it underneath there and carefully bend that up. And be careful not to scratch the metal or the plating at all on there. I'll check that again. And I went a little too far because this one does not close. So what I'm going to do is close the lever. So I'm going to hold this with one thumb. The other thumb I'm going to push down. Again with a little flexing motion. And you do not need to push very hard usually when you do this. You only push as hard as you need to to get the metal to bend. Those are good. They close about the same amount, so that key is finished. So the body is done. Now all I need to do is the one adjustment on the foot joint. These keys should close together, but this key does not close. So what I'm going to do is push this tab down, and if this tab goes down, this key will close farther. So I'm going to push that down, again with a flexing motion, and I'm going to check that. I did not go far enough, so I'm going to push down again, and check again. These keys are good, but if I went too far, what I would do is raise this up. And the way you do that is push down with one thumb on the key, and then push up with the other thumb on the touch piece. You usually adjust it with the C-sharp touch piece, but if you need to, you can also use the low C key to adjust it. And the way you do that is hold down the low C key with your thumb, then you raise or lower this or this as needed to adjust it. And you may be able to do that with your fingers, or you may need to use a smooth-jawed pliers. And make sure it's smooth-jawed, or else you'll damage this. And then you just raise or lower this until it is in adjustment. I hope this video has been helpful. Please subscribe for more band instrument repair videos.